The world's largest man-made wave. Um, it was many, many years ago. As I say, I've spanned many generations, 80 or so. I was literally commanding people and commanding the earth and directing human civilization since the dawn of man, as they say, or the beginning of man, or far back to the dinosaurs' age. That's who I truly am. I was an inventor that did many great things and invented long before anyone that is alive today was alive then. So I took part in many of the things that shaped humanity. Being the inventor of flight, inventor of steam engines, inventor of the plow, and so many things, I was that person. I directed and led people to be able to dig vertical shafts, do science, exploration, create concrete, create everything over the span of about 7,000 to 17,000, or, well, they say maybe 200 million years. I'm not exactly sure. I don't believe it really, but it's who I was. Anyway, long time ago, I had, in the old days, if you wanted to get at something, you had to dig down to it and then go in. There's materials at certain levels inside the earth, which the only way to get to them, of course, is to dig in and find them. After many years on Hawaii, I had a mine that stretched all along the coastline and was huge, epic. It had vast caves, and it was approaching the level to where it was becoming unsafe. This was known, and I had a grand total of 3 mining operations, or 3 mine towers, going down, spaced apart about, I don't know, a couple miles, like 10 miles apart or something like that. And I was mining this material. This material was being used for something, I forget what. And in years past, I had, when the mines would become unsafe or undangerous, I would just fill the mine, order the mine filled with explosive, and boom, bluish. And at the time, I had done a couple things where I'd put a boat in the way of the wave, clear the adjacent shorelines, and film the explosion from a boat. There would be a landslide, and then mining would continue at the now exposed level. They had worked their way in quite a ways. Other people joined in. I guess the material that I was mining was particularly useful for something, or particularly wanted, because pretty soon there were 2 other mining operations that were happily coexisting with mine. I had one of the biggest and the first one. And then there's 2 other groups that were mining alongside me. I didn't mind the competition. It's like, whatever. That's cool. More the merrier. So we were all mining, and we were doing these mines in there and shipping the stuff out, and it was being used for different things throughout the countries. I guess it was used for something. I forget exactly what is in the mountain, but it was some material that was important. So it's being used, and come along, and these mines are huge. It stretches, like, I think it's 3 miles in. It occupied the whole shoreline, 3 miles in, this great big massive mine. The mine was again becoming unsafe after, I think, 50 years or something like that. So I thought, well, opportunity. So the mine was literally filled with explosive. Whole mine, barrels and barrels and barrels and barrels and barrels and barrels and barrels of gunpowder, I think. I forget if we used gunpowder or plastic explosive. It was one of those moments where the world switched over to producing explosives. And a lot was mined and explosives were planted. It was going to be the biggest wave ever that involved, I believe, 3 miles or 10 miles of coastline, basically. It was going to be boom. Biggest man-made wave of all time. Required the construction of 3 ships, 2 smaller ones and a bigger one that were made watertight with film crews and film cameras, and a turret that could maneuver and would look out and watch the explosion. Basically an explosion blast. Had a smaller one closer to the explosion that was just like a mile offshore, a half mile offshore. It's pretty close, or 100 feet, a couple hundred feet offshore, so it'd be almost directly in the blast zone of the explosion. But it was a watertight, armored ship, and I believe it survived. Basically, it was like a little submarine kind of thing, completely airtight, completely watertight, with pumps and everything inside, and a camera to film. Anyway, and it had 3 other ships, and also involved 2 islands or 3 islands that also had camera crews on them and bunkers made first, and sheet glass that was, I believe, a couple feet thick of glass. It had a harder frame of glass and then a softer frame of glass. And these islands were also used for some nuclear explosion stuff too. Anyway. Come along. Required the clearing of shorelines everywhere. All shorelines were all perceived dangerous shorelines were cleared. I placed a couple. I ordered a couple trains placed along the shorelines to see what the force of the water would be. There was like 3 trains that I had placed there. I was like, whatever, and some cars and a boat and some other stuff just placed, in the way, just to see what the wave would do to it. Also, there was also some buildings that would be cleared, or they had 3 types of buildings: a wooden building, a block building, and a concrete building, all placed. It was a structural test as well. I decided to combine a whole bunch of stuff. So anyway, it'd be the biggest man-made wave ever. And then, lo and behold, come day, and boom! Largest explosion ever. I think they might have used plastic explosive for it, but barrels and barrels and barrels and barrels. Like every couple of feet, there was a couple of barrels. It was a lot. Well, there were 3 tests total, and one of them definitely used gunpowder, and one of them might have used gunpowder and alcohol or something like that, some sort of stuff. And then the other one, I forget what the exact components were. And then another one would probably use plastic explosive. There might have been multiple explosives used in one test. I'm not exactly sure. I forget. It was a test, basically. It was a test of explosive and a test of wave power and a test of destructive power of water. Anyway, so come the day, and I think it cost me a grand total of like a couple $100. Like I said, I have printing presses, I have mints, so it's like, couple $100, whatever. Basically, the equivalent of probably 13, maybe $1 billion today. It was a lot of money. It was a lot of money. But back then, a little bit of money went a long ways. So anyway, so people were cleared, film sites were set up, and it would be a historic moment in time and space for kind of like a marker for me, basically, pretty much saying like, all was here, or Lucifer was here, world-class inventor. And if you go back, you'll probably see it. There were 3 of them, I believe, or more. And I think it was like 1200 or some point in time in the past when I was doing my thing, and decided to do a world-class marker. Anyway, so I believe 2 more mine shafts were drilled just to give it that extra little push, just to give it a little shove in adjacent areas. And basically a whole cliffside went into the water. Anyway, there's lots of film, there's lots of records. It cost me a fair amount of money, a couple $100 or a couple, like, $12,000, I think, total. I mean, you get a lot back in the old days. When you have a printing press and a mint, it's like, you get a lot. So, and I was doing my little world thing, I own TWA aircraft, all that stuff, and was basically shaping and guiding humanity. Had been shaping and guiding humanity for a very long time. Anyway, I'm at the 10-minute mark, so I'm just going to say, yep, well, it happened. It was cool. It was awesome. And I was still young and world emperor. And a lot of data was collected, research was done. It was one of those epic times in history. Anyway, kind of funny that they don't mention it, or that it's not told or forgotten. I don't know. I don't know when it happened, maybe 100,000 years ago. Some people say it was 100,000 years ago, but I don't believe it. I don't know, but there's photographs and pictures and all that other stuff. Realistically, to me, it was, I don't know, not that long ago.